Hey guys, welcome to Strength with Shan. That would be me. I'm Shan, bodybuilder, strong woman, professional wrestler. I just finished my final gym session for the week. This week it was pull. Usually it would be legs, but we had to swap some sessions around this week. No cardio today because I've already done all my cardio for the week. I'm gonna head home now, get some food, get a coffee, and then sit down with you and talk about goals. Now I'm all fed and caffeinated, I feel ready to go into today's video. So the topic today really is centered around goals, and I am going to get more into detail on my own goals for the rest of this year, but I kind of just wanted to touch first of all on why I think goals can be really, really helpful. The way I look at goals is I try to understand who I want to be and the behaviours that I want to display. And then I look at the things that I'm doing, the behaviours that I am showing, see whether those are conducive to that end kind of person that I want to be. Doing that, I'm able to see the things that are good and that I should keep doing or do more of. And I'm also able to see the things that maybe aren't quite in alignment with who I want to be. And it gives me the opportunity to focus in on things that I can change, maybe forming new habits, maybe trying to break some old habits. And if you're having a particularly difficult day where there's something that you know you need to do, but you don't necessarily feel like it, we all have those days, you can kind of bring yourself back to, but I have this goal that I am working towards. And if I do this behavior, that's honoring that goal. And if I don't do this behavior, that's not honoring this goal. And it can be really, really helpful to just keep you focused on the things that you need to do. So the goals that I'm going to be looking at today, I actually set at the start of 2025. New Year's, people make resolutions. I try to think long term with my goals. I have something that's kind of, say in a year's time. So when I'm making goals at the start of 2025, I was trying to think about where I wanted to be, who I wanted to be, things I wanted to be doing at the end of 2025. And that was kind of the formation of the goals that I made at the start of 2025. It is really, really helpful, especially on those days where I don't feel like going to the gym or I don't feel like sticking to my meal plan today. I really want that chocolate bar or that packet of crisps or whatever it is. For me, I can look ahead to the end of 2025 and what I want to have achieved, and I can think, actually, is this gonna help me get closer to that goal? And depending on the answer, helps me just stick to my commitment to myself. And I think that's really important, why goals should come from a place of self-love and not hatred or punishment. You're trying to honour yourself and you're trying to build the person that you want to be. So, on that note, let's have a little look at the goals that I set myself at the start of 2025. So at the start of 2025, I had 4 key areas that I wanted to focus on. First of all, it was the house move and then creating a home once we'd moved into our new house. Second off, it was my physical health and a new emphasis on bodybuilding. Third off, it was studying, specifically wanting to get my personal training and strength and conditioning qualification. Finally, just generally happiness, gratefulness, and looking after my mental well-being. So we're just past the halfway point of 2025, so it's a really good time to take a look at the goals that I set, and I want to kind of grade myself on how authentic I'm being to this future version of myself. Going to grade my efforts in various areas and identify the things that I need to focus on. So the first one, moving house. As you can see, still no move. I mentioned it in my last video, but we were hoping to have moved house by now. We got things kind of all lined up in January. We found the house that we wanted to buy within the same week as finding a seller for this place. It's a really short chain. It's all been in place since kind of the end of January, beginning of February. We really had high hopes that it would be a simple process after that. We were wrong. It's really difficult to grade this in terms of my own behaviours. All I can say is that I have been putting a lot of myself into this process. I have driven everything that I can drive. I have controlled everything that I can control. I've influenced anything that I can influence. When we have needed to do something, we have done it. We have tried to push our solicitors to deliver things that they need to deliver. There's one last thing that needs to go through, so we're close. And that means that we should be in hopefully very, very soon. What I do want to talk about with this one is kind of how certain big life events can impact so many other areas of your life. As I mentioned, this has been a very stressful experience. It reached a bit of a peak for me around May, June time. I was in a very stressed place, both with this and with work at the time as well. There were some other things going on there. I was struggling to then sleep properly, and then because I wasn't sleeping properly, that almost heightened my stress levels. That was a really challenging time, and a lot of it was driven by this thing that I couldn't control. And what I really needed to do was shift my mindset back into controlling the controllables, and that is something that I would just really urge you always to look at. Things go wrong. Things are out of your control. How you react is in your control. I'm still very frustrated with this whole process, and I'm not going to say that it isn't causing me stress, because it is. But what I am doing is doing everything that I can control, and I'm trying to just look after myself. So that is a big tip that I would give you, is find the things that you can control and focus on them. We are remaining optimistic and I just urge you to keep your fingers crossed for us, please. So how I would grade myself, I think because at times I have let the stress get to me, I have now learned to control the controllables. I have been putting in a lot of effort with trying to keep on top of where everything is, but obviously we still haven't moved. I think we've just got to keep it average. I think it's a C. On to the next one. I'm looking very long term at potentially competing in 2026, but focusing back in on 2025. I signed up with my coach, Emma, November 2024, and I've been working with her ever since. But I actually signed up with her with the goal to do a photo shoot. So stepping away from Strongman last September, that was the last time I competed, I needed something to give me a new focus. I was enjoying training in a bodybuilding style anyway. I went to the gym, I had my own program that I'd created and I was following it and it was great. But what I found was if I had a week, for example, where work got particularly stressful or other things came into play, and I had a day where I didn't really feel like going to the gym, I kind of didn't have a driving force to get me there, and I'd be more likely to miss a gym session. It was the kind of realization that I needed a bigger goal to focus on to keep me accountable. We went on holiday in October and I'd started following Emma's content. I'd listened to her podcast, I'd started watching her YouTube videos, and I thought that she would be a really good coach for what I needed. So I reached out to her and I signed up with her in November, and I was not wrong. Like, she is a great coach, and I'll put her details in the information for this video. Last week, I officially started my prep. I am doing a photo shoot in November, and the prep is, we're gonna try and replicate what a prep for a bodybuilding show might look like. So for those who don't know, bodybuilding is the process of building your body to meet a set of criteria depending on where you're competing. So there's different federations, there's different categories. The areas that I'm looking at are the more muscular female categories. And then the idea is that you build muscle in the right areas to get the right look. And then you go into prep. And prep is essentially a fancy word for diet in preparation for your competing season. So in this case, It's not competing, it's for the photo shoot, but it's preparation for the photo shoots. The idea is that I diet down, lose a lot of body fat, and then can display the body that I've built. So in terms of my prep, I kind of have just sort of broken down some of the key things that I'm focusing on, because this is kind of a big goal and it has a lot of little steps to it. I have 5 meals that I eat a day. It looks slightly different whether it's a training day or a non-training day. I'm in a calorie deficit, getting good sources of protein, lots of fruit and veg. And at the moment, it's been going really well. Like I said, I've only really been truly on plan for a week now, but so far so good. I've not really been hungry. I've been enjoying all my food. My weight's been going down, so we're, off to a good start. So the second key change that we've made now I've started prep is my cardio. I'm talking specifically zone 2 cardio, so you get your heart rate up, but you're still at a conversational level. I have it programmed that I do 150 minutes across the week, which I have decided to split into 5 30-minute sessions. It's quite a nice amount of time without it being too long or too short. My step count is at 10,000 a day. That hasn't really changed. I was already doing that before I started prep. To be honest, I was already doing that before I started with Emma. It's worth noting that when I do my cardio, I remove my step counter. So my watch has got an inbuilt step counter. So I take my watch off when I'm doing my cardio, because any steps that I get doing cardio don't count towards my step target. Next thing I thought worth noting is hydration. Important anyway, whether you're on prep or not. But my goal, I believe, is 3 litres a day. I generally exceed that. I try to use 1.5 litre bottles. I'll fill those up and it helps me kind of keep count of where I'm up to with my hydration. At the moment, with the weather being so warm, I'm generally drinking 4.5 or 6 litres, somewhere between those two values every day anyway. Maybe I should have put recovery rather than sleep, and sleep kind of feeds into that. But you've got to let your body recover. Sleep is really, really important. If you're not slept well, other things can end up going to pot. So I've been really focusing on my nighttime routine, winding down. I'm trying to wake up at the same time every day and try and just get in that consistent sleep cycle. This for me is the one that I do sometimes struggle with. There's sometimes events that are out of your control. I sometimes have a really hard time just winding my brain down. So I'm working really hard on this one pretty much all of the time. Even when I get into some good routines, I find it quite hard to maintain those. I know, for example, in a couple of weeks, I'm going to a wedding and I'm going to be back late that night, and that's probably going to throw my sleep cycle out the window for a weekend. But for me, it's just going to be really important to just get back on track as soon as possible, so I don't kind of give myself jet lag from going to a wedding. And I've put it at the bottom of this list. This list is in no particular order, to be clear, because this is definitely not a least important thing. My training, currently that is split across 5 days. So I do an upper and a lower session, and then I do a pull, push and legs session. I tend to have a rest day between those kind of 2 blocks. My training, again, it's been programmed by Emma. It's focused more towards the physique and like figure categories. So it's kind of building delts and lats and quads. I also have a bit more volume currently on my glutes, just because they are small in comparison to my quads, and bodybuilding is all about proportions and balance. The most important thing with my training is that I am training with intensity. I'm having to be really careful in the heat and making sure I'm taking enough rest between sets so that I can push the next set again to that same intensity. I'm really, really enjoying my training block right now. It's been really fun to train for aesthetics. Something worth quickly noting, which I realised I did not add here, is posing. So it's kind of more pertinent to my long-term goal for 2026 rather than the photo shoot for 2025. But part of bodybuilding is being able to display the body that you've built. So it's really, really important to learn how to pose to be able to do that. So I've been working with Limitless Flow posing. Again, I'll put their details in the information for this video. I recently completed their Posed in 8 course, and that was just really, really helpful. Overall, I am currently ticking all the boxes that I need to be ticking. I am making the sacrifice to travel to the gym to get everything done. The reason that I've gone with an A minus rather than just an A is, like I said, the sleep. It's a constant area of focus for me. I'm putting a lot of effort into it. I'm not always getting it right, but we're keeping working on it. On to my next goal. I want to qualify as a personal trainer and strength and conditioning coach. I have signed up for an online course which I'm working through to achieve this. 2024, obviously I was still wrestling a lot and I was in a space where people were trying to look a certain way when they were in the wrestling ring, trying to be fitter to be able to perform things in the wrestling ring. And I kind of realised how much misinformation there was out there. I think it's really, really difficult to navigate this space if you don't have certain understandings and certain knowledge about things. It got to a point where people were actually coming to me for advice or asking my opinion on things. Part of this was actually triggered by being in a particular gym environment. There was a personal trainer working in that space, and there was a particular day where somebody that I knew was training in the gym, and the personal trainer came over to him, hadn't asked him what any of his goals or anything were, tried to give him some unsolicited advice, which, I'll be honest, I personally think was bad advice. It wasn't necessarily wrong, like what he was saying, but it wasn't necessarily relevant for this person's goals either. It made me realise as well, there are bad PTs out there. There are people that are qualified technically, yes, but actually aren't great. And I do think that that is something to be aware of out there. There are really excellent coaches and personal trainers, but make sure that you're training with the right person for you and that they ask you about what your goals are and they design a program that works towards your goals. In terms of my progress with this goal, it hasn't been as good as I would like. I don't want to make excuses because at the end of the day, I want to be qualified and I'm the only person that can get me through this course and get myself there. It has been challenging with the house move. My desk is packed away. I'm kind of borrowing the dining table for work and various things at the moment. I don't necessarily have a space in which I can study. Even where I work, it's kind of like the living room, kitchen. There's kind of boxes everywhere. We're sort of half packed and half not packed. And it's not really created a great environment to study in. And I kind of made the decision to put a pause on it until I'm in a situation where I'm able to process the information that I'm learning. I just don't necessarily think it's productive. Once we're moved, I'm going to have a room in which I can work, I can do content creation, I can study, and I can shut the door behind it when I'm done as well and leave it behind, or I can go into that space and that's kind of a focus space. So I'm really, really looking forward to being in that space for that reason. But yeah, I'm not going to lie, I thought I would be further along than I am. So a lower grade than I would have liked, but I have to be honest, because I've had to make the decision to put this on the back burner, it means I'm not progressing it. So I can't give myself anything higher than a D. Mental well-being. As I mentioned, the house move has been incredibly stressful and it's been really important for me to manage that stress. Other things that I did want to talk about, again, sleep, I mentioned it as part of my bodybuilding topic, but it's really, really important for stress management too. When you are not sleeping, everything is 10 times worse and things can spiral. And I certainly got to a period of time where I was in a really low, and part of that was just because I wasn't sleeping well enough. I started to do some things to help improve my sleep. I added ashwagandha to my nighttime routine. I was stretching before bed and trying to kind of physically wind down as well, trying to reduce my screen time before bed, reading and helping my brain kind of wind down. And that's all been really, really positive. And once you start building sleep. That again impacts positively and you get into a positive cycle with it. The other area for me in this topic has kind of been my creative output. My last video I discussed about how I've stepped away from wrestling. That was a huge creative outlet for me. And it's only with wrestling less that I've kind of realised there's been a little bit of a kind of creative void for me. So I've had to find other things to do. You're obviously watching this on YouTube, so I have started this channel as a little bit of a way to share the things that I have learned, but it's also a good way of me to create. I have got lots of different ideas for things that I can do. I'm learning to edit videos, and that's been really fun trying to put videos together. And then also, like, more traditionally, I just completely lost myself in creating this paint by numbers. Really simple thing, but just focusing on painting the right colour in the right place just completely switched my brain off. I ended up getting another one of those. I've done 2. Maybe I want to do some more painting. I might need to find some resources, if you know of any, where I can learn different ways of painting. That would be really good. That would be really helpful. Please drop it in the comments. But that was a really positive thing that I found that helped me manage my mental well-being. So I've decided to grade myself a B+ for this one. Stress has at times kind of got the better of me. I have to recognise that it's not been perfect. However, I have taken a lot of positive steps towards managing, maintaining and improving my mental well-being, and that's what this grade really reflects. So, actions that you can take from watching this video if you've been inspired. Have a little look at the things that you're doing right now and whether they're honouring what you want to be doing in 6 months' time or a year's time or even 2 years' time. What goals do you have? Are the things you're doing working towards those goals, or are they working against those goals? Have a little review and let me know in the comments how you get on. And I'll catch you in the next video. Take care, guys.